Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We're doing kind of an impromptu video because I think this one's easier to do for what we're looking at. And this is the page of history, but we're also going to have a look at the Q&A. So I'm just kind of putting in the page of history since it's here anyway and it doesn't really work as its own video. This month, for June, you can get Nikolai Gostello, who was a hero of the Soviet Union. He was a pilot who was around and definitely had a bit of a heroic stint. You can see here it says 2 days after the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, on the 24th of June 1941. Gostello downed a Luftwaffe plane using just the turret of the DB-3F resting on an airfield. And then on the 26th of June, so 2 days later, the aircraft that Gostello piloted was hit by flak in the fuel tank and caught fire. Gostello flew his flaming bomber into the enemy, and he received the Hero of the Soviet Union title, and his valor became an example to other Soviet pilots. So that's the profile, which is useful. One of the things I will say about doing the page of history, you do get some pretty good trophies from it, which can help with the grind, and also generally a lot of the vehicles are more mid-tier, so it's a little bit easier to do them, and then you can get access to some pretty cool stuff. So we have Pearl Harbor, of course, and well, the Battle of Midway, I should say. So it's going to be American and Japanese, naval and air. We have D-Day, of course, so it's going to involve a lot of vehicles, depending on how much they stretch it. And then we have the Battle of Sultan Yaqub, which is part of the Lebanon War, so we'll have to see how they do that. Israel might be required for that one. Villa Bocage, another Second World War battle after D-Day, another Normandy hit-up. Villa Bocage was actually a really fun mission in Company of Heroes, the first one. I know that's like a random thing, but just to put that in there. And then you got Operation Battle Axe, which is, of course, in North Africa, so that will be British and German forces. Philippine Sea in 44, so Japanese and American naval once again. The Battle of Razinai, which is the USSR versus the Germans, part of Barbarossa, and then Fire Ram, which is, of course, the actual Gostello himself. So I don't really know what they're going to add to that one. Maybe just Soviet planes. We're going to have to see how that goes on. So yeah, that's the page of history. Let's get into the dev stuff. So the devs are doing a series of Q&As, or at least they're supposed to be doing a series of Q&As, with this one being the first one. And we were asked, basically as CCs, to give forward a bunch of questions to basically ask the devs to try and quell some of the issues that have been going on recently with the whole like disenfranchisement of many people, and also what they kind of feel like. Like, you can read kind of why they're doing it here. People that have to be thanked for stuff like this are people like Oxy, for example. Oxy is one of the big guys of why this got put together, and all of that good stuff. So just kind of put that out there, just to let you guys know. So we're going to go through the Q&A. It's a long one, and a lot of these answers are what you would kind of expect. I'll probably put it into like 2 or 3 different videos, just because there are many different topics. But the thing has to be understood about these Q&As is like it's once again, it's actions speak louder than words. Like, I've seen millions of these Q&As, and just so many of the answers just turn into, yes, we'll look into it, oh, this is appreciated, blah blah blah. And you'll see it with this one, and I'm getting real bored of PR speak nowadays. I've been dealing with it for many years, and we'll see how it goes. So it says, we're concerned about the comparatively low efficiency of the... We are concerned about the comparatively low efficiency of the post-penetration effect of low-caliber heat rounds. For example, on such vehicles as RU-251, Orbital, Bulldog, AML, and PT-76. And the answer says, we're planning to rework certain aspects of shaped charges, shaped charged jets for low caliber rounds. These rounds do have very narrow post-penetration jets, and there are lots of real-world examples of instances where lightly armored vehicles remain mobile and even in fighting conditions after taking a hit from heat. Because of this, we don't plan on making these particular munitions overly powerful, but in regards to destroying modules and incapacitating crew in the path of the jet, we are planning some changes that will make their damage more consistent. So basically they're not really gonna do too much. I know you read that and you may think that they're going to change a lot, but basically what they're going to do is they're going to rework certain aspects of it, and until we know what those aspects are, then we have no idea what's going on. They also mention that they're fine with the low amount of damage, and my guess is what they'll do is they'll just increase the damage at the tip of the at the chip of the kind of the splash from the heat shell. So the main issue with these shells is actually their cone isn't great, so they don't like splash and hit a bunch of different stuff. They only hit maybe one thing or two thing and get stuck there. That doesn't seem to be changing, which is kind of sad. Light vehicles might be very die-hard, being able to absorb 3 to 4 rounds because fuses are unable to arm. And then it says, this is a big topic for players and a common talking point inside our team as well. There are several possibilities we're considering, but they will take some time to develop. We're keenly aware of this issue, though, and will introduce a solution if and where we can. So this is kind of a cart before horse thing, they've added so many light vehicles over the last few years. You'd think that they would have figured out maybe previously that they may want to sort this issue out a long time ago. Now you have a ton of light vehicles, especially the high tiers, where that can just survive ridiculous amounts of shots because everybody's firing APFSDS. Or the light tanks have access to chemical munitions, and the light tanks have access to chemical protection, so therefore firing heat at them doesn't overpressure them like it does at lower BRs. So yeah, it does suck that a lot of light tanks right now are actually more tanky than medium and heavy tanks, because of where the crews are in them and because of how much space is inside of them, and that can be very annoying. If they go back to the old hull break mechanic, this would solve it, but also that mechanic annoyed a lot of people, so I'm guessing they're not going to do that. I feel like this is going to be a constant issue going forward. There's not really going to be a fix for this one. Is it possible to make 3D decorations physical so they can detach from vehicles when hit? Great idea! We'll look into how complicated this would be to implement, and if it is needed, if it is indeed possible, we'll aim to make them destructible and prone to catching fire as well. This means they're already working on it and already been looking into it if they're going to throw in that whole catching fire thing. But the simple fact is the camouflages have been a hotly debated thing for a long time. Which is why it will have already been on Gaijin's radar for a long time. And the only issue with stuff like decorations, so the bushes, for example, which a lot of players do think do give an advantage. I also agree. I think they do give an advantage, especially at low tiers against new players, especially if you like grinding up. If you just see a full bush monster and you don't know what it is and you don't know how to deal with it, and if you just shoot center mass and nothing happens, it can be a pain. There's a lot of people who use stuff like KV-1Bs, for example, at 4.0, and all they do is just run around and smash people in the face with the KV-1B fully bush because nobody knows where to shoot them because they're new players and they just get battered over and over again. It's really sad to see, and I would rather there was something done about that. You know, when it comes to the bush side of things, technically you can get them for free now, so there isn't like a pay to win part of it, but also that means if they make a change to it, so the bushes can be machine gunned off or can be shot off or whatever, that shouldn't be as harsh for people because of the whole it's not just a money thing anymore. They really should have reverted the big packs off people. Like that was a poor move as well. Like when they sold those like big packs of bushes, when they sold the big packs of bushes, when you could get like 5 massive bushes for X amount of money, they really should have just reverted that and just dealt with the consequences. That has just been a horrific problem with the game for a long time. The other decorations, yeah, it would be nice to get them removed. They're not as egregious as the camouflage stuff, but basically it would be nice if you could get rid of them. Obviously they shouldn't add additional armor or anything like that, but they should be able to be removed since they are technically external. Is it possible to refine the reloading mechanics? When the loader is knocked out during a gun misfire, then the reload cycle starts again. Absolutely. It's a good point to bring up. Yes, especially for vehicles with a very long load time. We have a solution in mind for this. We can try to save the reload progress after a certain percentage of the reload cycle is reached, say 80% for example. At this stage, the round is already in the breech, so there'll be no need to start the entire process over. Also, for two-part ammunition, the loading process could be split in 2 stages, so the cycle won't reset to the start if one part of the projectile has been prepared and the loader gets knocked out. Now, this is positive, this is a very good change if they put this in, because it always is a pain when that happens. Even when, let's say, you have a loader and then your gunner and commander gets knocked out, and then your loader moves to the gunner position, it resets the reload on the vehicle. This has happened for many years, and it's been very annoying. So the fact that they are changing this is positive. Hopefully they can get it in as soon as possible to try and kind of address that issue, because it is annoying as hell. It's as simple as that. Do you plan to increase the mobility of heavy tanks and slow SPGs in the RB mode like it is in arcade? No, this isn't in our plans. RB is where vehicles should behave as authentically as possible. Low mobility is just a real-world drawback these kinds of vehicles have. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, if you want to play the increased mobility stuff, you can just play arcade, surely. Wouldn't that be the way to go? Some SPGs do definitely need rebalancing, though, in certain ways. I'm just not sure how to do them. I think the way to do it is actually additional mechanics to them, to make them a little bit more useful, which aren't just, rank 4 modifications, which are hard to research because the vehicles are not very good. Do you like the idea of giving free backups when purchasing top-tier premium vehicles? And the answer is we do. We'll consider including an initial amount of free backups with high-tier premiums in the future to incentivize players to stay in the battle, which is fair. It's a band-aid solution, I think is the way that I put it. The way that I've always thought of these things is pretty simple. I don't think new players should be able to buy top-tier premium vehicles or high-tier premium vehicles at that, so we don't have that silly word game where it's like, well, it's not a top-tier vehicle because it's not a rank 8, it's actually a rank 7, even though it's 0.3 BR below the highest BR in the game. Yeah, so high-tier premium vehicles. I honestly think, and I have done for the longest time, that if you want to research, let's say, or you want to buy a rank 7 premium, you should have to have at least like one rank 6 or one rank 7 researched in the tech tree to be able to purchase it. And I understand that that is something which is not fiscally possible when it comes to Gaijin, but it would massively increase the usefulness of general players and also general lineups, and it would just be nice. The other thing you do is you make bundles, so you can purchase 3 vehicles at a time for 30% discount overall, and that means that you can get yourself some a full lineup, and then people can run those. But obviously that would just be seen as a money grabbing idea because it would be quite expensive. The next one is, there are still turret desync bugs, and the answer is, it's a complicated issue to solve, but an important one. We're currently working on a fix. It does seem a bit complicated because it keeps coming back and then disappearing and then coming back again and disappearing. It was even an Enlisted for a little bit, where the turrets would be the wrong way around, and then they would just shoot you and you'd die. It was very interesting. So. It was one of those things that was still about. One of my favorite stories about War Thunder, and just to kind of show you what War Thunder has been like over the years. So they officially released War Thunder. I can't remember when it was, maybe 2016, 2017, maybe even 2018, whichever year it was. They officially released the game. And in that update where they officially released it, they had the worst turret desync bug of all time. A vehicle would be looking the opposite way to you, so you would come round a corner to fight it, because you thought they were looking the other way, and then you get shot in the face. And I thought it was just, you know how you have like those times where it's just like a bit of like dark comedy, where it's like everything like doesn't match up or do stuff. That was one of those times, and it was absolutely hilarious. Is it possible to get rid of desync of server and client? No. There you go. I've answered that for you. But here you go. Here's the long-winded version. Unfortunately, in any network model, including ours, desynchronization between the server and client is sadly inevitable. This is a con for sure. The pro, however, is that these desyncs usually do not affect the gameplay for all players, which is important. The War Thunder network model, state sync, was chosen to be the most cheater-proof, in contrast to lag compensation models like in CS. And more importantly, it allows us to implement relatively realistic physical interactions. The shortcoming of our model is that there is the possibility of minor and more rarely major desyncs, as all clients see the possible present of other players, instead of recordings of the past. The lower a player's ping, the less often desyncs happen, but they will still happen anyway. Yeah, which is fair, which is why stuff like this can't be tested on a LAN setup. So if you have like your testing done internally, you'll never see these things, which obviously is a problem. One of the things that would obviously help this issue is more servers in different places. I feel like we had a server cluster added maybe 2 years ago when the US servers were really playing up and everything was really falling apart. That was one of the biggest issues when it came to War Thunder for a long time ago. But one of the things that could be an addition is like a South American server or a West Coast US server, or even like a server in somewhere like India, since it's such a growing part when it comes to the game, and also when it comes to just, well, general population and also gaming in general. Even like places like China, you could put something in. So you pretty much lower people's pings to try and get rid of some of these desyncs that people see. Because the fact that I'm able to play War Thunder on something like 170 ping, which is my standard ping to EU servers, by the way, and I have very good internet, but it's just how it is tough. But also at the same time, the fact that I'm able to do it and the desyncs or whatever aren't that bad kind of is a testament to War Thunder, because it controls a lot better than many other things out there. But the simple thing is, these things are never going to go away. It's just part of the system, right? Any chance to fix the bug spotting when vehicles are invisible for no reason? The issue comes from the server's anti-cheat algorithms. We do our best to sync them with the game render, but in a dynamic environment with huge open spaces and various client pings, it's unfortunately impossible to maintain perfect synchronization. Well, hopefully it improves, and then also you have the cruise skill part of it as well. The cruise skill part of it always gets overlooked because a lot of people don't put many points in stuff like keen vision, but if you actually read keen vision and the parts of it, you'll realize that they do have effects on stuff like scouting. Then you have damage by excessive pressure needs more calibration, and also damage on high caliber shells for ground vehicles needs to be increased. Okay, the answer is for improvements like these, we need more precise examples. So there's a lot of factors involved here, yeah, pretty much. Often issues in this area are not reliably reproducible, so we'd appreciate any replays or recordings of issues you've found so we can investigate them more effectively. It's easiest to do this in the hangar. So this is where the PR speak comes in, because that's a full-on PR answer. If you want the other answer is, we don't know what you're talking about, could you please help us? Right, so yeah, you need to be way more specific on stuff like that, such as what vehicles are doing this, when are they doing them, what are they doing them against, because there's just so many factors involved, you know. Please fix the bug that doesn't allow you to turn over the tank if it's turned upside down and lies on the top of its turret. Ah, yes, it's very rare but annoying when it occurs. We'll look into a fix. It must be something to do with the collision model of the turret and also the collision model of the hull. because they are definitely different, and something happens where the turret gets embedded into the ground, which means that it gets stuck there and you can't get it out again. I'm pretty sure that's what goes on, but obviously I'm not an expert at these things. Would it be nice to fix? Yeah. Is it high priority? No. I think that's probably the way to put it. Do you have plans to create a tutorial on mechanics for top-tier vehicles, such as anti-aircraft missile systems, drones, etc., with an option to customize controls for such mechanics? Yes, we do! We're planning various tutorial elements for our modern systems. I kind of liked what they did with the War Thunder Wiki stuff, where they kind of said to people, hey, make us small videos, and we'll stick them in the wiki, and then we'll give you some stuff for it. I thought that was really good. I think they could do the same thing with in-game stuff. I feel like they don't even need to make tutorials about these things. They could just ask people to make them, and then they would review them, and then they would basically in the tutorial section you would create just simple rows and columns of different tutorials made by different people, which hyperlink them to the videos outside of the game, or maybe even they're inside of the game, kind of like the historical campaign stuff. I think in general that would be a better idea, because once again it gives the community a way to be part of the game, and also it means that Gaijin can focus on other things. All they need to do is review the content, and that's it, before putting it into the game. Due to the difference in the vehicle generations, there's a big problem in rank 5, particularly on BR 70 to 80, where there are tanks with APF SDS and stabilizers, and without them. The answer is indeed, the technological jump of this BR range is problematically abrupt. We'll pay special attention to this area in particular and come up with some solutions. Yeah, that's fair. You know, there is a lot of there is a big gap, I suppose, there, but also it isn't the whole story. There's vehicles in that area, so stuff like the Type 69, I believe it is, the one in the actual tech tree, where its APF SDS is awful, and you don't want to use it. Same with the M41D, where it has Gen 2 thermals, but it has probably one of the worst APF SDSs in the game, meaning that you can't really do anything. It's also slow and doesn't have a stabilizer. So it isn't just like a catch-all statement, unfortunately, when it comes to these things. The main issue for me at those BRs is actually more the ATGM carriers are not very good. And a lot of them, especially at 8.0, like the M113A1 tows, just never move in BR, and I don't know why. They should do, because it's just rude of them to stay where they are, because they're just in a horrible position. The next question is, the Killer Hunter feature is toxic and requires a 2 to 3 second delay to make it possible for the commander to take over and react somehow. The answer is a delay here would make sense. We'll consider this. I really hate the word toxic. It's overused, it's overbrash, and it's one of those that was actually popularized in gaming by a guy called Riot Light, who was actually part of League of Legends. He was one of the guys who decided he wanted to be like a behavioral counselor, basically, to the League of Legends player base, and he would do a bunch of like these surveys, and he would try and make people better through the lens of League of Legends, because he thought that gamers were horrible demons. And he coined the term toxicity and also toxicness when it came to gaming. And it's kind of annoying that it's still around, because it turns out the guy who was known as Riot Light, that wasn't his actual name. His name was something Light. He now works for Facebook. It turns out he abused his partner while he was doing all of these things, which, you know, the whole projection thing comes to mind. So yeah, not a very nice guy, but yeah, that's why I don't really like that term. Yeah, it would be nice if there was a delay between the commander taking over from the gunner. Don't know how realistic it is when it comes to that stuff, but yeah, it generally sucks when you hit a gunner and then straight away you get hammered backwards because you didn't, you know, kill the commander too. It is very annoying. Currently, the graphics can noticeably influence player skill. For example, an enemy tank can be almost invisible in deep shadow until it fires. Locations are full of decorative elements that overload players' attention. Is it possible to brighten up the shadows and lose some greenery and decoration in locations? The answer is it's a tough question that requires more complex solutions and precise fixes rather than a sort of global update to the graphics. The thing is, we can't just make a game where pro players have their own minimalistic graphics mode, while more casual players have a different one, since that's just not fair. Dumbing down the game graphically so it's purely structured around competitive gaming also isn't an option. Our game has always will be orientated towards a wide spectrum of players with different tastes and preferences. So on this, one will have to look at more specific elements that could be improved, which basically means that they're really not going to change anything. The game itself already has a ton of different graphics options, and I don't think it should be relayed, or I don't think we should base it around competitive gaming. One of the nice things about War Thunder is that it looks really beautiful, and it's one of the games out there which has so much range of different things, whether it be maps, locations, vehicles, and all this. It just looks really stunning, and you can make it look beautiful, especially when it comes to aviation. So the idea that we should focus on the competitive side of things has always been an idea that I've never been with, because I don't think that's what the game is about from that level. There is obviously the PvP element to it, but what I'm talking about is true competitiveness. Like, we shouldn't make it so everything just looks like mud apart from the ground, apart from the tanks, which should be a different color so you can tell what's going on. Generally, that's just something which is just a bad idea in general. So I think the way it is right now is fine. Obviously, sometimes, at least for me, it's hard to see people, but that's just because my eyes don't work very well. And also, I generally think it's fine. Like, if you want to be like competitive, or if you want to be a grinder or whatever, you can already reduce a bunch of graphic settings. Anybody who tells you, by the way, that modifying graphic settings, especially lowering certain things, doesn't give you an advantage, just don't listen to their opinion. It does. Like, it does massively. Maybe not the ULQ stuff, but if you sharpen certain things, also remove certain things, such as certain details and foliage, yes, of course it gives you an advantage. Upgrading helicopters through PvE is too long and hard, and their stock versions are often almost unplayable in other modes. The answer is we're currently trying to figure out what to do with the mode. We'll announce our decisions at a later time. Well, it's better than the heli PvP that they did, so at least, there's improvement on that. And yeah, they're going to keep modifying it. The mode itself, if you compare it to many others, is still young, so they've already done a ton of changes to it right now. I'm sure they'll do more in the future. Won't really be a surprise. Remove volumetric damage and make certain tanks too well defended. Track fenders and side skins absorb hits. The answer is volumetric damage brings many tanks closer to their correct level of protection, Tigers and Panthers for example, and this can't be achieved without maintaining our current realistic armor model. However, as with every complex system, it's hard to perfect across the board. We need your reports. You can send us your replays or record anomalies in the hangar. In all cases where volumetric and every other damage system isn't working correctly, we'll fix it, or at least we'll do our best to. We appreciate that volumetric was a big adjustment to the tank battles, as it wasn't present from the start of the game, and thus required some adaptation. But we believe this more realistic armor model adds to War Thunder, so we'll work hard on improving it as much as possible. So, there's two things at work here, which is something that I've noticed. You've got the volumetric damage change, which happened, but then also you have the desync stuff. So a lot of vehicles, I'll use one example here, the KV-1. So the KV-1 became way more tanky with this volumetric armor and also volumetric shell change, mainly the volumetric shell change. And what this meant is you have to pinpoint shoot it in certain areas with certain guns if you fight those things, otherwise you're just going to die. And there's nothing you can do because they can just, blank shot you. So what that pretty much means at the end of the day is, if you are experiencing desync, even in like a minimal way, like even if it's just like, I don't know, like 10 centimeters or whatever, if you shoot the shot and you shoot where you think the turret you should go through the turret or the low glacis and the KV is moving, you're not going to hit that point, and then you're just going to die. And that's the issue right there. It's the fact that a lot of these vehicles got more tanky, and also at the same time, you have desync. So if these guys just keep rumbling around, it's harder to get proper shots on them. Now, the way to fix this is by BR changes, but also at the same time, that may not happen because those instances don't happen as much as standard fights. Decrease the number of all convoy AAA and EC, or give them less accuracy. We fixed this one, already in production. Yeah, it was in a changelog recently. For air sim float plane spawns, instead of spawning all the way on the back and taking 25 minutes to get to the battle, have it be able to spawn at any airfield or spawn on the fleet with your float planes. Suggesting when spawning on any airfield, of course, you spawn in the air. If you spawn on your fleet, have it spawn in the water next to the carrier. That's not very simmy, is it? The answer is, we'll think about this one. The current system was chosen based on player requests. However, there are not many float planes, and they're almost universally slow. So it probably won't negatively impact immersion too much if they spawn in the air closer to the action. Yeah, I mean, it is how it is. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, what do you want? Do you want historical accuracy? Do you want simulation? Or do you want gameplay improvements? It's a tough one when it comes to simulator, because it's supposed to be a simulation of what's going on. But if the whole thing isn't simulated in that way, then yeah, it can be a bit of an issue. I'd like to see if War Thunder Naval Arcade could be a bit more arcadey to attract more people to the mode. Mainly by making range finding faster, so it might be more fun to play. Maybe also add more ammo to shoot at which target, so people have more of an idea when to use AP, HE, or SAP. The answer is we agree here. We'll try to do something to make the mode more approachable, and we'll likely start with range finding. There's no issue with the range finding thing. Like, aiming in naval is really not that hard. Like, I know for some reason there's a lot of people who think it's like the crux of the situation, right? If you think the aiming is hard, okay, just play the Mitchser or play the Spokojny, okay, in the Blue Water fleets. They have like rangefinders which will find targets after 6 seconds and auto range after 3. Okay, so just play those. Play them a lot, realize the lay of guns, realize what you do, realize when you aim down, when you aim up, and all of these things, and then you will be able to aim in naval. I find it really weird that that is the crux for a lot of people. I really do. The ammo thing, what should be promoted is the protection analysis. I think in naval for the protection analysis, you should be able to do like a broadside on a vehicle. So pick a bunch of different points where you hit a vehicle on with a certain gun, depending on how many guns the vehicle has that you're shooting, and then it shoots them all at once, so you can kind of see how much damage it does instead of just one shot, which obviously is not very useful. So in that sense, I would just want to improve the protection analysis so people know what to do. Next question, the attack drones should be removed. They don't bring anything. Ooh, sorry, it's early in the morning, I've just finished work. The attack drones should be removed. They don't bring anything new to the table. Helicopters and planes do the same, except that they are much harder to hit and kill. With that, they aren't really counters against them except high-tier AAs. We spent a lot of time gathering examples and analyzing feedback regarding drones. We're going to move them up to a higher BR, where they can be more easily countered by advanced AA systems. Good. They should just be top tier. They shouldn't be any BR. They should only be at the highest echelon and nothing else. This should have been done from the start. The addition of drones has just been a negative. And not just because of the drones themselves, okay? The drones themselves are annoying. But what it has shown, right, and this is something that has to be understood, is that CAS is dominant at the higher echelons of the game. Drones only have access to 2 ATGMs. They also have access to basically a free CAS. But imagine if everybody had fully loaded CAS aircraft and helicopters at the higher echelons. Those are the types of battles that you would get. So instead of the drones just being the issue, it showed you the problem with the overall setup. You know, it showed you the simple fact that if everybody has all of these bells and whistles, the game is unplayable from the ground. And that has been a problem for a long time in air at the higher tiers. The next question is suggestion to stop helicopters and other aircraft from firing their weapons after they are considered dead by the game. It's also not enjoyable to die to a player you've already beaten. The answer is, in reality, destroying an aircraft in terms of inflicting damage that makes the aircraft uncontrollable doesn't make it harmless. We do like this last chance aspect of gameplay. There's a beast deep inside you. It will not die. It will fight back. It's it's a system that goes both ways. Firstly, it's realistically possible, and it might make a player's day to get a kill with a doomed aircraft. However, we do see the issues it brings, especially with misleading kill messages. We do need to do a bit more thinking on this one. Just make it, with helicopters, just make it so when the vehicle is uncontrollable or when it dies, it becomes uncontrollable. So your control surfaces are fried if the vehicle is falling out the air. You know, just do that, right? That's an easy one. When it comes to the airplanes, that one's a little bit harder. So if your control surfaces are affected, when in the cockpit, maybe you shouldn't be able to use your secondary armaments if you're already dying. Maybe that's what you should do. But if they're not affected, and you do have full control of the vehicle, then you should be able to use the secondary armaments. Maybe that's what to do. And then the last one for this section is suggestion to allow phasing through teammates at the start of the match to prevent blocking in the same way Air Realistic has just after takeoff. And the answer is we can't see a way to do this one for ground vehicles. Players inevitably will exploit it. When spawning, players will deliberately try to drive through each other to end the cooldown while taking up the same space, which will cause a lot of issues, unfortunately. I feel like, didn't we have that in the past? I remember something like that. And yeah, people would just get stuck inside of each other, or they would spawn inside of each other. And it would just kind of, you know, sometimes one person would ping to off the universe. I don't think it's a huge issue. I really don't. Like, you know, sometimes people get in others' ways, you know, when you're trying to get to a different position. But that just means, like, maneuvering and stuff. It's not as if you have, like, a huge pile-up every match. Every time this stuff happens, it's usually like 1 or 2 instances every few or every like 5 or 10 battles. It's not a huge deal. Like I don't think it's that much of an issue. Naval, it's an issue though. Naval, it's a massive issue. But then again, as we know, Naval has a ton of issues that never get talked about, like the reduced parts and FPE, and also, of course, some of the general grinding of the vehicles. But that's this section of the Q&A. You can see there's a lot of questions answered and a lot of good responses. Some of them are a bit rough, but overall not too bad. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Kupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R., and Lafouche for supporting the channel.